Alrighty, we are live on the YouTubes. That's right, we are live. I've already tweeted the deets. But anyway, this is our live High Republic special. My name is.
Alrighty,
Oh,
we are
geez, hold on.
live on the YouTubes.
Yeah, I just did not mute my YouTube. That's part of us doing an NA production here, according to T-Spans from our server. Um, anyway, my name is Eric Mitchell. I am your host. This is our High Republic live show. We are getting ready for Wave 3 of the High Republic to hit tomorrow, in which we're not excited at all. No,
Eh, no big deal.
no, no. It's not like some of our favorite characters are going to bite it or anything. But you never know. Joining me, I have a great panel tonight joining me. We have, first off, making her debut. She is a Star Wars TikToker and member of our community, as well as, can I say, part time Disney cast member?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Part time Disney cast member. It is Maggie McDonald. Maggie, thank you for joining us this evening.
Of
And
course, it's an honor.
yes, and making her debut, really good friend of mine. We've had a couple of good High Republic discussions with a couple of other people. She is a podcast host for the Force Toast podcast, as well as a competitor for the movie trivia schmodown in the Star Wars division. It is Laura Kelly. Laura, thank you for being here.
Hi. Thanks for
Hi.
having me, Eric. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, just have a couple of quick announcements and then we're just going to dive into the High Republic. That's what tonight's show is all about. So, real quick, our first announcement is tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of the High Republic. Actually, that was supposed to be a news thing, too. The audio version of our last show. So that's Saturday show will actually be available on Wednesday on all your major podcast platforms. Yes, that's right. We are back to audio. You can expect an audio and video review of The Fallen Star coming by Friday. And this makes me super excited. Our RPG is coming back on January 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, actually, just next week, we come back and we have our RPG, and we are super excited about that. So, that is it for our announcements. And the only thing that we have in news today is actually the High Republic is celebrating its 1 year anniversary tomorrow, and we're getting a special High Republic show that Christina Ariel is hosting. And we've been told we're going to get some surprise announcements as well as a few special guests, but we're probably not going to get anything Wave 3 related tomorrow. How are we feeling about the High Republic being a year old? Because this definitely feels like it's been around for a lot longer than a year. Um, we,
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
Who would like to go first?
I Add can go Maggie. first.
Okay.
Um, I feel like we've just been saying it every single time we have a conversation about the High Republic. It feels like we have known these characters forever. We all have. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure everyone else agrees that we have such attachments to these characters in such a short amount of time. And it's just incredible the world that they built in just a year, and knowing that there's just so much more to come is so exciting as well.
Hmm.
And just seeing the success that it have after had after the first year is just incredible.
Yeah, totally. Laura, go ahead.
I think in contrast to what we've gotten on screen, it has felt like a lot, which makes it feel like it's been around a lot longer than it has. So I was thinking about this other day and how like Marvel has put out like show after show after show in the last year, and I think we just got like what Bad Batch and Visions, and then like just Boba Fett squeaked in right underneath the under the wire, and we just didn't get a lot else on screen. So when it comes to like, that hunger for the Star Wars content, like the best content that's coming out right now, I think right is just it's the High Republic. It's been hit after hit for as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're about to dive into the High Republic discussion here and really break down these waves. You're about to get spoilers, people, so just be ready for that. But yeah, I mean, this was supposed to come out in August of 2020, because I remember it was February of 2020 is when they had the big reveal event, where
That
they,
when it was no longer Project Luminous and
yeah,
Luminous and it became High Republic. That's right. Okay.
yeah, yeah, and that was when the Luminous Five showed up, and it was like that big event in LA, and they were like, "Hey, this is what we've been working on for like the last 2 years," and then due to COVID, we had to wait a little bit because of the High Republic, but I really feel like this hit at the perfect time, especially for Star Wars fans, because we just came off of the Skywalker saga. We just had The Mandalorian wrap season two, and then we get the High Republic here. And I just remember that launch trailer and just being super excited about it, and then just having like that big like launch event, the virtual launch event where they were talking to the Luminous Five, I guess you could call them, and just being super excited about this and just knowing that they could pretty much do whatever they wanted to do, within reason to the Skywalker saga, but they're well enough removed where they could just, do whatever they wanted to do. How do we feel about them setting it this early, or do you think that it should have been set a lot earlier? I'll go with Laura.
So when I think about like going way far back into the past with Star Wars and you think about like the old Republic and things like that starts to make me feel a little bit like uneasy because I was sort of a latecomer to the Star Wars fandom. And so when I think about all of those things that were like, that are legends now and how thrilling those games and things were for people, it just makes me feel like a little bit excluded, which is like unreasonable. And I know that. But the fact that they chose to set it in a totally different era from the High Republic and from the Skywalker saga and give us like something completely new, and it's new for everyone, and we're all experiencing it as new together right now. It just felt more inclusive for me just in general, as like someone who's fairly relatively newer to the fandom. So I think I like the period that they set it in. I don't have any complaints.
Nice. Maggie, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is honestly the perfect time period. I think if we went any further back and went into all the Sith and everything, it becomes a little bit of a repeat to what we already have. I think the with the Nile and the Drengir, I think it's something new and it's an exciting new enemy that we haven't really seen much like it before. And I just think honestly, it's been so fun to explore just something else other than Jedi versus Sith or Jedi or Rebellion versus Empire, you know, Resistance First Order. It's all been very similar when it comes to the Skywalker saga. So I like this little bit of change that we got.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then just seeing like all of the mediums that this has come out in, we're talking about books, comics, short stories, and Star Wars Insider, manga even. Now we had the video game announcement, but we're not going to talk about the video game because of, you know, all of that. But I believe it was you, Maggie, that brought up Charles Soule's newsletter in our Discord server, and how they
Yeah.
were actually talking about television and animation projects that they're going to incorporate with the High Republic as well. We know that the Acolyte is going to be based during the High Republic, but an animated series that could be pretty interesting, especially if they get Dave Filoni and that Clone Wars team to jump in there. Or would you like to see it in a different animation style?
Honestly, I feel like I mean, I'm a big fan of the animated shows, Rebels more than Clone Wars, so I would love a Rebels style show just because I do really enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I would love for Dave Filoni to get his hands on it in some animation. I feel like that would be just such a great show. And a way to introduce it to more people who haven't necessarily gone out and picked up the books or don't have interest in reading or any of that, I feel like it's a great way to kind of integrate it with more fans.
Laura?
Definitely in the same boat where I'm also a bigger fan of Rebels than I am the Clone Wars, although I love both. And I sort of miss that Rebels era design style and animation style. So I'm kind of hoping that we can get something of that in the future. I'm kind of hoping that they may have like learn their lesson a little bit with Star Wars Resistance, and I'm hoping that they can like maybe keep it at a higher older sort of level in terms of the audience that they're aiming at. I don't know. The 2D animation was fine in Visions, obviously very different than Resistance. I think that 3D animation style that we got, like even the advancements that they made when they had Clone Wars Season 7, how much different it looked than what we were used to. I mean, I'd welcome any of that back on my screen anytime.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat here, and as long as the Project Luminous writers are involved in the overall storytelling for the show, I'm definitely down for it as well. So, shall we jump into this and talk about Wave One here and Phase One of High Republic, because we are getting towards the end of Phase One now. So, Phase One is called The Light of the Jedi, which I think is really cool that they've broken it down into phases. It kind of feels MCU-ish, just a little bit, but we have Wave One, which kicked off with Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Then we had A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, which is a young reader novel. Then Cavan Scott put out Marvel's Star Wars The High Republic, which is an ongoing comic book series. Then we had Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, which is a young adult novel. Then we had Daniel Jose Alder's Star Wars The High Republic Adventures comic series, which is published by IDW. And then we had a children's book that comes with Buryaga stickers called The Great Jedi Rescue. Let's kick things off here with Light of the Jedi here, and Charles Soule really just kicking down the door with this book. And what a way to kick this thing off with. The body count is high in this book. Let's just admit that right off the top of the bat here. And when you were reading this book, because I know that I felt I could not put this book down. It took me about a day to read it. Like, I just flew through it in record time, that and The Rising Storm. But what were your thoughts when you read this book and you got to meet these brand new characters? And I'll start with Laura, and then I'll go with Maggie.
No, this is kind of strange. It definitely feels strange to think about this now, but I struggled a little bit getting into this book. And when I say that, I mean like getting into like the first chapter. And I think it was more of like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know when we are. I don't know where we're like, it was kind of it was a little bit of a transition that I wasn't prepared for. And I remember picking it up and having to like put it down for a second, then coming back to the audio, because this may have been around the time where I was kind of making the transition to like audiobooks. I think the pandemic like made it so that I can't read anymore, which is really unfortunate, but audiobooks work really well for me. And this one, I remember like once I finally finished that first chapter, I was just like, I don't know what is wrong with me. Like I must be insane, because that was right like off the bat was such a gut punch. That first chapter of that first book, it was just like, oh, so this is how this is gonna be. Cool. All right, this is just here to destroy all of us. That's fine. Emotionally, I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, Maggie, go ahead.
So I'm someone who didn't actually know about the High Republic from announcement date. I joined a little Star Wars book club, and I joined it right about like 2 months before the High Republic was released. So I had read Master and Apprentice, Dooku Jedi Lost, and the two Padme books that are out. And then when High Republic came and released, and I was like, why not? I have these Audible credits, so I got it on audio because I was going back into the office. So I didn't really have time to read as much as I do now. But since I was full time in the office, I was just putting my headphones in, listening, and It was the same thing. That first chapter, I was just like, "Oh," I was like, "I don't even know these characters." And even now, like those characters in that first chapter, they're not, I mean, they're not huge. They're important, but they're not, characters we had known for a long time. They're these random people, and you are so devastated by the the situation that happens to them. And I think it was just a great way to get the ball rolling. I think Charles Soule did a great job with making us so attached to these characters and loving them right away. So when all this devastation is happening, it is just absolutely heart-wrenching.
Oh yeah, there's the kid that the captain of the Legacy Run talks to, and like when the Legacy Run blows up, I automatically thought of the kid. I didn't think of the captain. I thought of this kid that was just stranded in this corridor, and then you find out he's on one of these chunks that's about to hit the Hetzel system, and then the scene that gets me, because I want to talk about this kid real quick, because the scene that gets me is it's after the it's after the great disaster, and Buryaga's talking to the kid, and this made me cry. I mean, this absolutely made me cry. And like the kid is telling Buryaga like what he saw and everything, and the kid blames himself for the Legacy Run disaster, and then Buryaga just like gives him that huge bear hug, and like the kid just starts crying, and at that point I was just done. I like just tears are just flowing out of my eyes. But with the Legacy Run, to kick things off like this, because we also get the uh the the technician on the space station who's just trying to get back to the planet to ask the girl out. And little does he know that's his last day of life ever. And then we get the Jedi responding after, seeing everything going on with like Hetzel Prime's prime minister and everything. When the Jedi come in, it's similar to an Avengers-esque moment, because that's when the Jedi sweep in, and things are going to be okay, but it doesn't go without a hitch. As you know, some stuff still happens, but there we're introduced to Avar Kriss, who is one of the most badass Jedi you will ever meet. And then we're also introduced to Buryaga, and I believe is Jorah Malley there too?
I
Nib,
don't remember. That
Nib
was too long ago.
Yeah, there's too many Jedi that show up at Hetzel. The
yeah.
two that I remember are Buryaga and Avar Kriss.
I think it's
And
Nib, Buryaga, Avar, and Mikkel,
that's right,
Suitmani.
that's right. And then
I
Loden
just
and
read it this
Bell.
morning, so
Yeah,
it's all fresh in my brain.
there you go. And then Loden and Bell are there too. Which R.I.P. Loden Great Storm. Um, but we see the Jedi, they're just there to help, and that's when we really get what these Jedi are about. And we really see that they're they're not the Jedi that we see in the prequel trilogy. They're not even the Jedi that we see in the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. These are Jedi that are so set in their ideals that, you know, they just want to help people. And that to me is a little refreshing here too when it comes to this book. I feel like I'm all over the place talking about this book. um, but we're also introduced to Chancellor Lena So of the High Republic, and we're introduced to the Nile and Markian Row. And let's talk about Lena So and Markian Row here, because they're almost two sides of the same coin in a way, where they just want what's best for their people. Whereas Markian Row just wants the Republic to leave him alone, and because they started going into the Outer Rim, now he wants to bring it down. Whereas Lena So just wants to show everybody, hey, we are all the Republic. If you join us, your life will be better. But that isn't the case, especially if you read the Life Day Treasury. Um, but what are your thoughts on Lena So and Markian Row here? And maybe I'm wrong with them being the two sides of the same coin. And I'll start with Maggie first.
No, I don't. I think that you hit the nail on the head. They really are just both such just so vocal in what they want and what they want for their people. I mean, Markion is a little bit more on the selfish side than Lena is, but yeah, they definitely, I feel like I love both of those characters a lot. Obviously, we know I love Markion, but I love the Chancellor too. I think she's just like the epitome of just such a great leader. She's inspirational. Her priorities are there, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you see it a lot in The Rising Storm too, where she's in the action. She is not standing on the side and watching and making the Jedi do her job for her. She is there supporting her people and fighting for the Republic. And I love that. I love her character. She's a great character.
Laura, go ahead.
I remember being very untrustworthy of Lena So, and I'm sure that like just chancellors in general in Star Wars, like I'm, that history is there, and so I was just very suspicious of her from the start, and like pretty much throughout the entirety, including the end of Light of the Jedi. Like it wasn't until we got to like mid Rising Storm, I was like, oh, okay, she might be okay, I think. And even now, I'm like, should I still be questioning it? Like now, I'm not even sure. But I remember becoming very attached to her character and her story and like her son and everything once we got to Rising Storm. I just was sort of like feeling very cautious while we were still in Light of the Jedi. And Mark Yon Rowe, who like if you're an audiobook person, like Mark Thompson's Mark Yon Rowe is just it's just peak anything. Like I remember when the Cavan Scott audio drama was going to come out, I was just like, well, now I'm going to have to listen to somebody else play Markion Rowe, and it's not going to sound the same. And then I saw that he was playing him in that too, and I was like, all right, we're good. But I very much I'm very much intrigued by his character, and I am really looking forward to this Eye of the Storm comic series that's coming out soon.
Yeah, I am too. So with Marky and Rowe, you and I have had this discussion before, Laura, where I love Marky and Rowe to death, but I just can't stand the way he's portrayed in these audiobooks and audio dramas. But I love Mark
Fair.
Thompson. But I absolutely love Mark Thompson. Um, but we're not here to disagree on that. Mark Thompson is a tremendous Star Wars narrator, and we wish him all the best in the recovery from his medical issues as well. But so we get with Light of the Jedi, we have the Jedi rescue the Hetzel system, and they start their investigation into the Nihil. And while that's going on, we get a sense of what life is like on the Outer Rim with these Jedi outposts, especially the one on Elfrona, where I was very much reminded of like an old west town and how like the Jedi were like these marshals and like the townsfolk would be like, "Marshal, they're at it again," like come and save us. Um, and then that's when we really delve into Bell and Loden's relationship as well as Bell and Ember's relationship. Yes, Ember. My wife was like super excited when I just said Ember. Um, and we're also introduced to one of the most badass Jedi chefs of all time, Porter Engle, who will not only cook you an amazing meal, but he'll kick your ass at the same time. And then I forget what the other Jedi's name is, and forgive me for that, but we're introduced to these to frontier life, and I gotta say that was pretty refreshing too, because it felt like more of like this Jedi outreach type program that we were told happened, but we have never gotten to see. What are your thoughts on like these outposts? And whoever can start.
Go ahead, Maggie.
You can go first.
Well, I think that the Old West is 100% on point with the sort of vibe that I was getting from this. Angle with the like I remember them like all sitting around the campfire and like with Ember and like that's 100% like I think that was the total vibe that they were going for, and I'm glad that Charles Soule was the one to like really visualize that for us in this book, because I think that they did a really good job of continuing that on in subsequent novels. But I enjoyed this sort of like outlaws in the frontier, like blazing new trails vibe that we're getting out of the Outer Rim in this phase. Because I'm gonna be honest, like the Outer Rim in I mean, when you're thinking about like Tatooine, I'm like, that's like my least favorite Star Wars location of all of them. Besides, like the Twin Suns is like very pretty scenery to look at and very unique, but the rest of it, I'm just like, oh, desert, all right. But they've taken it a step further, and I think they've made it a lot more interesting to be in the Outer Rim and be like, really out in the wild in the High Republic.
Yeah, Maggie, go ahead.
So I love being in this new location. I feel like we've seen so much of Coruscant, and we've seen all these, especially in this era where the Jedi are such like an elegant, the gold and white and just very like high class almost without being like too materialistic. But you get to see these Jedi who live on these like outer rim planets for such a long time at these outposts. They start to really take on the not so much the culture, but they're a little more rugged, and the way that they help the people, they know everybody on the planet almost, and it is really so much like an old western town, and I love it. And I just love Loden and Belle's dynamic, especially after rereading that first encounter that we have with them. They have this like they are just like the perfect master and Padawan duo. They have this like unspoken communication that they have going on. They're just very I love them.
Yeah, I love them too, and especially like when we get to them on Elfrona, and Loden is trying to teach Belle how to slow himself when falling from a huge height, and he's telling Belle to jump, and Belle's afraid to do it, and Loden just says, "Okay, I got this," and like pretty much kicks him off a cliff to try to slow him down. And I just think that's great because Loden's just like, well, you got to learn sometime. So you might as well learn now. And Bell has no hard feelings about it whatsoever. He has no hard feelings about it whatsoever. Um, Ember's scared though, and Ember's upset, but
Rightfully so.
yeah. But and then we're introduced to this new Jedi technology as well, and Alfrona is the great place to showcase this because they have like these Jedi vehicles that are like kind of like tanks, but not like really tanks, and like it has speeders that it can deploy, and then of course you have the Jedi vectors as well. And like I love how like all of the weapons in this area are also like powered by lightsabers and kyber crystals. So it's kind of like the key from Voltron to like unlock your lion and everything. Um, which I think is pretty cool here. Any thoughts on the rise? I mean, not the Rising Storm, on Light of the Jedi before we get to the big thing here, which is we have two big moments, which is the Battle of I believe it was the Zur Nebula, and then we have Loden Greatstorm's capture by Marky and Rowe. What were your thoughts? What are your thoughts about these two things? Because this is when we're also introduced to Skier during the Battle of the Zur Nebula here, and that's also when Skier loses his arm. Uh, and like these two moments happen simultaneously. Like, what's going through your mind as like you're reading both of these moments? I know it's been a while for some of us, like me, but go ahead. I'll start with Maggie, and then I'll go with Laura.
I was so excited to see a Trandoshan Jedi. I was not sure what to expect because really the only Trandoshans we've seen were, it was Bosk. He's a bounty hunter. He was not, the most calm person. That he wouldn't be considered for a Jedi at all. And I loved seeing just all these new species. And I know, again, jumping ahead a little bit, but I know Daniel has like teased other new species that we're seeing as Jedi, and I am just so ecstatic because in a lot of other Star Wars media, it's mostly human or humanoid creatures that we've seen, and I just think that it's great to have this new look at that, hey, anyone can be a Jedi, no matter if you might be from a species that might be a little more aggressive naturally. But and then Loden, I really thought that he was gonna be okay. After being captured, I thought that it was gonna be I thought he was gonna get out of it, but unfortunately didn't quite
We're this
happen. But
close.
yeah,
We're this close.
it was definitely hard.
Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
I think the thing that the High Republic has done really well is like introducing us to characters in different media. And the fact that we had like very early on, I feel like we had a like visual representation of Skier. And because I remember like you think like Trandoshan Jedi, I was like, okay, come on. That's a little bit of a stretch, don't you think? Like, we saw them in the Clone Wars. They were like, they're hunting humans and Wookiees. I'm like, I don't know. Do we? Okay, interesting choice. But like, then reading this character in the comics, like, I was really surprised, like, how attached I got to this character by the time I got to like, what, issue 13 is the most recent one out. Like, I was just surprised. In at least getting the circling back again to Mark Thompson, like his vocal performance of Skier just adds something extra special, just makes you visualize it even so much more strongly. So I've always really enjoyed that character, surprisingly so. I didn't think I was going to get much into it, but yeah, the thing with Loden, I remember like feeling very impatient about wanting to get that resolved, and like like having to wait until the rising storm to really dig to circle back to that. I found really frustrating, but I get why they did what they did. It made sense for the story for sure. But yeah, what a like that was like our first one of our first devastating blow, if I remember correctly, right? Like that was like our one of our first sort of like major character deaths, or at least major character that was like important to a lot of people that are major characters.
Yeah, Loden's death is a huge blow in the High Republic, but this is also when Reith Silas loses his master too, Jorah Mali, because she dies at this battle, and then of course Loden is captured and tortured for over a year by Marky and Rowe. Thanks, buddy. Um, so let's go on now to well, we're gonna end our discussion about Light of the Jedi. We have the dedication of Starlight Beacon, and we're introduced to Elzar Mann and Stellan Gios, which I see Maggie's smile up there, and how they have a connection with Avar Chris, and then Elzar has a Force vision about the future, and then has a little too much to drink at the dedication ceremony, and that's where we pretty
There.
much end uh, end Light of the Jedi there. Kind of on a cliffhanger, but not really on a cliffhanger. What were Starlight Beacon has like become a character in and of itself throughout the High Republic, and to see the dedication ceremony, and then of course you see it a couple of other times in other mediums as well. To see Avar, Elzar, and Stellan like all together and having that moment before they're split up is a pretty surreal moment, and we're kind of introduced to this saga's trinity, I guess you could say, because it's always like three big main characters that we get. And so now we know, because of Trail of Shadows confirming this, they have more than just a small history together. They have a big history together. They were very close. Um, what are your thoughts on these three characters in general? And then we'll get into a test of courage real quick, and then we'll get into the dark as well as the comic stuff.
I love everything about it, but I feel like that is very obvious. I think after also going through that last part there with Avar and Elzar on Starlight, that's where I kind of just like fell in love with them and the idea of those two characters. And going through and reading it the second time and just seeing everything that they say about each other and even about Stellan too. I have like a whole my bookmarks, and I got the Avar and Elzar one and I got a Firebrands one because the way that they all talk about each other, they love everything that the others do. They are so in awe by, because if you look at the dynamic, obviously Stellan is just excelling at a very fast rate compared to the other two, and Elzar's still a knight, so he feels like he's not completely up to par with his friends, especially starting at the same time. But then when you see Avar saying like he there was the one part, I have it actually right here written down. He he never likes to use the force the same way twice, and it says Elzar's instincts were good. She they are just they I love the dynamic of how they talk about their each other's force abilities and just how much respect they have for each other. I really enjoy this whole dynamic. And then after Trail of Shadows, of course, that was a good thing to throw in there. Was that it's a little complicated too.
Yeah, Laura, go ahead. Talk to us about our new Trinity.
I'm actually behind on Trail of Shadows, so now I'm really looking forward to reading the 2 issues that I haven't read yet. I've only read the first one, but I am also just head over heels for for these 3 characters, and I think one of the things that like keeps coming to mind when I think about them, and I think part of it is because like we have so many other stories that focus on so many of like the younger characters that are more like in their Padawan years, or equivalent for the non-Jedi. And so I kind of have started to think about these as like in terms of like Harry Potter, they're sort of like the Marauders equivalent in this sort of story. They're like the generation above, and we never in Harry Potter we never got that story. Like we didn't get a real in-depth close look at those characters. And now I feel like I'm being rewarded, like I'm getting that here. And I'm enjoying their story, like no offense, like more than I am some of the younger characters for the most part. And yeah, I love their dynamic. I mean, especially when we get to like Rising Storm and the way that like Elzar is just like pining for Avar, and I'm just like, this like ship is I'm so here for it, and I just want all of the fan art. I need to see all of it. I need to read all of the fan fiction that people are like taking these characters and like just going wild with, because I just can't get enough of them, and I don't get enough of them because there's only 3 books and I need more, please.
Well, I mean, the comics have some of them. Elzar,
Do.
I don't think has really been in the comics yet. Um, no, I think he was in. No, he wasn't even in Heart of the Drengir either, because that was during Rising Storm, I believe. Um, but they're amazing characters, absolutely amazing characters. So let's move on to Justina Ireland's young reader novel here, which is A Test of Courage, in which we are introduced to Vernestra and Imri, who are our 2 Jedi protagonists for this book, as well as Avon Staros, and then Honesty, who is a Republic or delegate. Sorry, delicate. I can't speak tonight. The holidays. Anyway, they are they avoid another ship disaster. Apparently, the High Republic loves to blow up starships. Like that.
It's their
That's
thing.
yeah. That's what I'm getting here. So they escape the starship being destroyed. Uh, Imri pretty much loses his master, and Verdestra takes on the role of being his master, and eventually becomes Imri's master. They crash land on this jungle planet, and they have to survive. And this book was a lot of fun. It's a quick read, very quick read. You can finish it in like 2 hours probably. And it's Justina Ireland really just writing some great characters. It has some great action and everything. What are your thoughts on A Test of Courage? And I'll go with Laura and then go with Maggie.
You can tell, I feel like you can tell that Vernestra Rowe is like Justina Ireland's like creation. She was like her baby, and I really appreciate that she's gotten a chance to revisit that character because I feel like she does such a good job with her. And I've really enjoyed getting to know that character and sort of getting to see her go through that process of like having to struggle with the fact that she was sort of an overachiever at a very young age and then having to like become like going very quickly from being a mentee to being a mentor. And that's always been a journey that I've found really interesting. It's one of my favorite things about Rebels. With the Kanan, Kanan Jarrus Ezra Bridger relationship, I loved getting to see that play out in sort of a different dynamic in this new era. So I really enjoyed these characters. Avon Starros, I remember feeling very like intrigued by her, and I think there's maybe some stories that I've missed. Like, has she shown up much again since Quest of Courage?
I don't think she
I don't
has.
think so.
No, her.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything because I really like her. I'm hoping she'll come back again soon.
Yeah, I thought she might have showed up in Adventures, but I'm not sure. Adventures, like almost all of those characters kind of run together. Like all the side characters run together in that comic. But yeah, no, this is I think her she's supposed to show up in Mission to Disaster, I believe.
Got it.
Yeah. Maggie, your thoughts on A Test of Courage?
I love Vernestra. I love her her light whip is literally the best thing that I've ever heard in my life. I just think that's so awesome. It shows how she's just a little bit different than what we've seen in the rest of the Jedi Masters, not just because of the fact that she's so young, but she has this light whip. She's taking a little bit of a different approach to being a master to Imri. I thought it was a fun story. Think introducing Vernestra in the young reader's novel was, I think, a perfect way to do it because I have a feeling that we're just gonna see her moving up to, the young adult and then to the adult novel, and I think it's as we see, like, her character grow up and mature, we're getting there with the books as well, and I think that was a great way to do it, and I think she's an awesome character. I love Imri too, he's just so fun, um, and I love him in, Out of the Shadows as well. He's just a adorable little empathetic little Padawan.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Added Shadows here in just a little bit. Then that brings us to Kevin Scott's Marvel's High Republic's ongoing series. This is, if you were looking at a team book, this is pretty much a team comic book, similar to an Avengers style book. I keep going back to that because that's what I think of when I think of these Jedi teams. And with that, we're shown the threat of the Drengir, as well as them dealing with the threat of the Nile on Starlight Beacon. Any thoughts on this comic series outside of Keeve Trennis is the ultimate badass Jedi outside of Skier, and Sarek and Tarek are pretty cool too.
And Avar Chris riding a Rancor.
I totally forgot about that.
My favorite thing. It's so awesome.
It is awesome. And then Jedi fighting with Hutts too. I think that that's pretty amazing too. Maggie, thoughts on this comic series?
I'm loving it. I love Avar so much, and I love seeing because I've never been a person who really read comics before. This is the first comic books I've ever picked up in my life. And I didn't start them right away. I didn't actually start reading these comics until about like 3 or 4 months ago. And I was yeah, the reason I picked it up was because I was like, I love Avar so much, and there's nothing. I'm getting nothing in these books. And then I realized that she's basically the main character of these comics. And I just love seeing all of these characters. They're, the little touch with the dark side they all are having right now. They're having a little bit of difficulties trying to overcome these huge problems in the galaxy without I I don't know. There's so much depth to these characters and just in these comics, and I can't wait to see all of them in the books as well and just to see that just the dynamic of all of them is great. I think the way that they separated these groups, in the comics, the books, High Republic Adventures, that little group, I think that they all have the perfect character dynamics in them, and I just am really enjoying them.
Yeah, and I have a feeling Cavan Scott is going to break our hearts very, very soon with this ongoing series. Damn you, Cavan Scott. You will be you will be 3 for 3 at that point, because you broke our hearts through Tempest Runner too, bud. Um, let's move on to Claudia Gray's young adult novel, which is Into the Dark, and this actually might be my favorite book of Phase One, or Wave One, I should say, not Phase One, because Rising Storm right now is up there, and I think Claudia Gray's Fallen Star is probably going to kick that ass. But anyway, Into the Dark, we're introduced to Reith Silas, Comac Vetus, Orla Jareni, and Des Rydan, as well as the crew of the vessel. So we get Affy, we get Leox, who is pretty much 90s McConaughey, and then we get our boy Geode, John and Joey's favorite sentient rock in our Discord server. And then we are also introduced to the Drengir, who are our secondary antagonists in this book. And then this one takes place during the Great Hyperspace Disaster and during the dedication of Starlight. Uh, I'm just gonna go with I'll go with Maggie for your thoughts on this one first, and then I'll go with Lara for your thoughts on this one. So Maggie, go ahead.
I just have to say, Nan had me fooled. I really did not
Oh
expect
yeah,
her to be
Nan.
Niall at all. I was so, so shocked. I mean, how perfect is that she can trick people like that? I think that is she's gonna be such an interesting character to explore in the future as well. I love the vessel crew. I think they're just so fun. I think that's like the best word to describe them is just fun. They're just so just they're a bunch of badasses. I love them so much. I love Reith and Comac. It's heartbreaking when he finds out about his master, but then you have Comac there that's been supporting him this whole time, and I think it's just a great. I think I agree with you. I think this might be my favorite of Wave One as well.
Lara, go ahead, hit us with Into the Dark.
I didn't think that there was a Jedi that I could like more than I like Avar Kriss in the High Republic. And then I met Orla Jareni, and she's so freaking cool. And I I just love her whole vibe. And I remember in Into the Dark, I mean, they hinted at it a little bit, like call me crazy, but like, did they not hint that like her and Comac like have a little bit of like tension or something there? I'm like, we dive into that? I would like to know more about that, please. But I really enjoyed her character and I loved their dynamic and I liked that we were getting to spend time with them in two different time periods. I think it really added something to the story. But I have got to know who sat down in the High Republic brainstorming session, like that first session where they were just like throwing stuff up on the whiteboard, and who was like, all right, what do you think of when you think of Star Wars? Which person in that room was like, 90s McConaughey? Like, that's the answer that I need right this second. And why was it Claudia Gray? I think it was so perfect that they brought this character in because he's such a perfect, like, balance to the Jedi who, you know, are supposed to be sort of like all enlightened. He's so much more chill than them and it just works. It's just perfect. And also Funko Pop of Geode when do I get it? I need it. Just I don't even collect those things. I've got two of them, but I want it.
Yeah, I think.
I'd be all over it.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, who wouldn't want a Geode Black Series one? Like, come on. But yeah, I think that Leox, aka 90s McConaughey, is like a great representation of like the audience at this point because it's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, this stuff happens. He's just go with the flow, like whatever happens, happens. Nothing like really phases him. And then the best moment in this book is when Reith is about to be sucked out of an airlock and Geode comes in and saves the day. and Wreath just ends up like slamming into him, and like he just looks up and he thinks like Geode is just looking down at him, and it's perfect. To your thoughts on Orla Jareni, she is a badass and she's so awesome. And you're right, there's a lot of tension there between her and Comac. There's a lot of tension
Yeah.
between her and Comac. Um, to paraphrase Maggie's tweet about all of the Jedi in the High Republic, they are there to love up on each other, and we're here for it. I was not going to drop an F bomb on this live show because you never know who might be watching. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing like that this book tackles as well. Um, like like Affy flat out asks Wreath, "Well, how do you guys like make other Jedi?" Like like and Wreath's kind of just like taken aback by it like, "Oh, okay. Um well, it's not forbidden." Anyway, Nan, I completely forgot that she's in this book because there's so many characters to keep track of when it comes to the High Republic, but she is a great character. Absolutely love her, and I can't wait to see more of her. So that was Into the Dark, which I think is the best novel in Wave One. And then we have Daniel Jose Alder's High Republic Adventures, which is a great. If you have kids that are looking to get into comics, especially like Star Wars comics, this is the perfect series for kids to get into because these Jedi that you are introduced to are fantastic. And who could not love Court? Who could not love that little guy? And then Buckets of Blood. I mean, and then you've got Yoda in here as well, and Lula and Zine are great. I mean, just like the whole crew of the Starhopper is amazing. What are your thoughts on High Republic Adventures?
I'm a pass. I'm not reading these.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So I love this little group of Padawans. I think it reminds me a lot of that arc in the Clone Wars where they go to get the kyber crystals with Yoda. And
Um,
I feel like I love the dynamic of Yoda, this old grandmaster just running around with these little kids and just trying to wrangle them, and I think it's the most adorable thing. And these Padawans just love each other. They are best friends, and I mean, I don't want anything bad to happen to any of them, God forbid. I love Zine. I love that she's kind of just tagging along, and even though they know that she can't train to be a Jedi, she's still hanging out with them. I think Zine and Lula are the most adorable thing. But I think it's such a fun read.
Yeah, and the great Jedi race across Starlight Beacon is like one of my favorites. Buckets of Blood pretty much says there are no rules, and like everybody's like really trying to be civil with each other until the end, where Buckets of Blood uses the Force to clothesline every single Padawan and Jedi that's running in this race to win this race, and it's awesome. We do have the great we have the Great Galactic Bake Off coming soon with Buckets of Blood in that one. So
Live.
that's gonna be that's gonna be a great palate cleanser after the Fallen Star, and that'll be a fun read.
Definitely.
So let's we do have these children's books that are also covering some of the High Republic as well. Great Jedi Rescue is pretty much the Great Disaster rescue from Light of the Jedi, so we don't really need to talk about that. Get it for your kids, especially if they like stickers, because you can get Buryaga stickers. So there's that. So let's move on into Wave 2, because I know, Laura, you do have to go soon. But let's move on into Wave 2 here. And that kicks off with Cavan Scott, who was public enemy number one for the longest time until Justina Ireland wrote Out of the Shadows. And this is The Rising Storm, which deals with the Niles attack on the Republic Fair on Valo. And this is also the Elzar Man heavy book, which I think is great. And this is the return and death of one Loden Greatstorm. So I want to get your thoughts on this, and I'll start with Laura first. What are your thoughts on Cavan Scott ripping out our
I'm getting ready to
hearts?
wrap up. Oh man, I'm getting ready to wrap up right at the perfect time because I actually haven't finished Out of the Shadows yet, and I would kind of prefer I not get spoiled. So this is like perfect timing. But I loved The Rising Storm. I think for me this is my top. This is my number one so far in phase one. Um, I love a book that just makes me like feel, and Cavan Scott just makes me feel all the feelings. And I appreciate that even when it's cruel and when it hurts. I still appreciate it. I the thing that I enjoyed most about this was that man whore Elzar man was just my favorite character to
Yes.
follow through this whole thing. It was just so it never got old for me. In the same way that like Geode just standing there being stoic, any reference to Geode and Into the Dark, it never gets old for me. It stays entertaining, and anything with Elzar man out there doing what he does is just entertaining to me. It's just interesting to get this side of a Jedi that isn't Anakin Skywalker and isn't monogamous. It's just been a really fun journey to be on with Elzar. So I enjoyed this book a lot. Man, the stuff that we get though out of this end of this book, like I remember feeling like right, I'm getting to the end. Like we're done. We've gotten through this like horrific thing that happened at the Republic Fair on Valo. Like it's all winding down now. I did not see the Loden Greatstorm thing coming. I did not see that whole. I thought we were about like wrapping up, and the fact that they threw that in there right at the very end, I was like, I had to like go back and read it a couple of times. It was like the first time I watched Obi-Wan Kenobi episode of Star Wars Rebels. I was like, wait, that's it? That's just happened, and I had it was just rewinding the book and having to go back and make sure I didn't miss something because it just was like, oh yeah, this is what we're gonna leave you with. Fun.
Yeah, exactly. Maggie, go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I was the same way in the end. My emotions were like, yes, Belle and Loden back together, everything's all right. I actually listened to it before I read it, so then you get he turned to stone and crumbled, and Stellan Gios has never been more afraid in his life, and I was just like, what? That's it just ended, and I didn't even know what to feel at the time. I was like, I have to restart this book. I have to listen to it again. But this is definitely my favorite out of anything that's been released so far. I love Elzar again with him and Samira. It's just awesome. And when he's running over to the Starlight ship because he's like, oh, it's gonna be Avar. I can't wait to welcome her to the planet. This is gonna be so great. And then Orbelin walks out and he's like, oh great. He's like, I'm stuck here forever now because this man doesn't know how to stop talking. And I think he's such a fun character too, Orbelin, that I wasn't really expecting. I kind of love that the whole like archivist characters. I think they're those are always just super fun because you see so much of the fighting and the battles, and then you get these characters that basically just live in the library. And I thought that it was awesome when he just took off his suit and engulfed all the Nile to stop them.
Yeah, this book is has so many amazing moments. I will talk about my reaction to reading the end of the book. I was at a function with my wife and a couple of my in-laws, and I was finishing up the book, and like I got to the last page, and I sat there for about 5 minutes, like slack-jawed. And then my wife like looks at me and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "That's it." Like I just keep like flipping back and forth because I thought there might have been like just like a tiny bit more with that epilogue. And I was like, "This is it. This is how it ends." But I mean, it's a perfect ending. It's a perfect ending because Trail of Shadows picks up right where it leaves off, which is awesome. But I will say this: Orba Lynn kicking Lorna D's ass while telling her about the different artifacts on the Starlight Beacon platform, I think is amazing. And then the Elzar stuff is so good. It's so good because like him and Stellan like have such a great rapport. Like like they bicker like an old married couple at times. Where Elzar's like, well, no, I want to do it this way, and Stellan's like, well, if we do it this way, it's going to be so much better, and like you could just tell like Elzar just wants to like flip him off and just like do his own thing, but he won't do it. And like when Elzar taps into the dark side too, and then asks Stellan for help, like at the end of doing that, I mean that's just it's brilliant. And it gives us one of the best moments ever. Elzar man riding a freaking dragon.
Yep.
Yeah, and throwing a lightsaber. So, Laura, did you read Race to Crash Point Tower?
I did. I unfortunately I don't remember a ton about it for
Okay.
whatever reason. I think maybe they're just it was a bunch of characters that I didn't, at that point we were so ingrained in it, and then I feel like I got introduced to a bunch of new characters I have not since circled back to in any of the content that I've read. So unfortunately for me, it was sort of the least memorable of all of the novels we've had so far. I don't remember disliking it. And I remember, there were some really fun droids in that
Yes.
book, if I recall. And I think reading this book is really part of what prompted me to start reading the comics, just to sort of like get that visual depiction of what exactly the Drengir were, because I was like, wait, like evil plants? Like at that point I probably hadn't read Into the Dark because I did go out of order when I was first reading these. Um in that going back to the main run of the comics helped a lot, but that was probably my motivation to do so, I think.
Yeah, I know that you have to go here, and we'll wrap it up so that you can go here in just a minute. But your thoughts
Great.
on Race to Crash Point Tower, real quick, Maggie?
I love Ram Jamaram. I think he is just his character development through the book is great. He's someone he's like, I just want to sit in my garage all day and work on this droid. He's like, I just want to tinker and be a mechanic basically. And then by the end of the book, after being with that whole High Republic Adventures crew, he's like, can I come with you guys around the galaxy? This is like so much fun. This is awesome. And I love that. I love seeing his revelation that okay, there's other things to do in the galaxy, and
Hmm.
even though he might not like fighting as much, it's still it was great. I think it was a cute little book. I love the droid. I can't remember his name right now.
Uh,
Um
V8, I think his name is, or something like that.
yes,
Yeah.
V8 and the Mombraks are adorable. They're awesome too.
Yeah.
And the fact that he hates the Mombraks in the beginning and then they just rewire him and he's like, I love these guys. These are my little friends. I think it's just it's a great, it has a lot of great funny little moments.
Hmm.
And it's mostly happy, which I always enjoy too.
Yeah, it's a really good palate cleanser after the Rising Storm, even though it takes place during the Rising Storm. It's a very just solid palate cleanser. I will say this: the Drengir are the funniest in this book as well
There.
because like they just, I mean, the Drengir, all they want to do is eat people. That's it. That's all they want to
Mhm.
do. So
Eat.
all they're doing, yeah, they call everybody meat, and it's fantastic, and I'm here for it, and it's great. Laura, I know that you have to go, but I just want to thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I don't want you to
Yeah,
think I'm
thanks for having
rushing
me,
you
Eric.
off because I'm
Oh,
not.
that's okay. It's all good. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, and it was nice to meet you, Maggie. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Um,
Nice to meet you.
you are always welcome back. Definitely, and we're gonna keep in touch, and we'll talk as we end wave or as we end phase one. We'll do like a phase one wrap up, I guess.
Nice.
So
Sounds
yeah.
fun. That's
All right.
great.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful night, Laura, and yeah, we'll continue here in just a minute.
Sounds good.
All
Talk
right.
soon.
All right. Sounds good. Bye. All right. So once again, thank you to Laura Kelly. I know that she had to go. She could only stay about an hour. She's still feeling a little bit under the weather, but that's fine. Um, I want to talk about now. It's time to talk about Out of the Shadows as well as Edge of Balance, which are next to High Republic things here. And then we're going to talk about a little audio drama known as Tempest Runner, which let's talk about Out of the Shadows, which is Justina Ireland's young adult novel. In this one, we get Vernestra and Emery back, as well as Comac and Wreath. And we are also introduced to Sylvester Yarrow and Jordana Sparkburn, who also has. What is it with people in the High Republic and having giant cats? You know what I mean, though?
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
so funny. It's
yeah.
every single character has some kind of pet, mostly giant cats though.
Yeah, I mean, Lena So has her two giant cats. Jordana has this giant cat. Excuse me, has this giant cat. Um, your thoughts on Out of the Shadows?
I think I definitely like the Wave 2 books. I think for me they surpass the Wave 1 books, and I don't know if it's just because of the characters that we get. I love the characters in Out of the Shadows. I think it might be their age. They're a little bit closer in age to me, so for me, I feel like I almost relate to them a little bit more. Um, I love the connection that we get with the Nile in this one. I mean, Chancey Yarrow, I don't know if for anyone else, but for me, it was definitely a shock that Chancey Yarrow was working with Markion. I was definitely not expecting that one. I think that again, I feel like I keep using that word dynamic, but they really do just do such a great job at making these characters mesh so well together, and I really enjoyed Out of the Shadows a lot. I think it's very much I like the character. It's very character heavy and just relationship heavy, and I like seeing. I love these characters a lot in this one.
Yeah, I will say that this one, out of the novels that we've gotten in Wave Two, this one is more of a slow burn compared to the Rising Storm and compared to Race to Crash Point Tower. Not saying that that's a bad thing, because I think like this one, the action takes a backseat to the character development, which I think is very important for this book. Um, Honestly, I'm just gonna say this. I kind of saw the Chancey Yarrow thing coming from a mile away when I was reading it. Just because like they keep harping on her parents' death, on her mom's death, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna come back. Um, we're introduced to a Gungan professor that speaks perfect English too, which I thought
Yes,
was
I forgot about that.
yeah, which I thought was pretty funny. One of the best moments in this book is the interaction between uh, Vernestra, Imri, Wreath, and Comac when they're talking about going back to Coruscant, and Vernestra is trying to requisition a ship, and pretty much the quartermaster is like, or the dockmaster is like, no, you crash too much. You can't have one. And that,
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's so funny. Um, this book does have some action, but I think that this book is also the most political that we've gotten outside of. I would say the Rising Storm is pretty political too. But this is like for a young reader novel or a young adult novel, this is pretty political.
Mhm.
Um, w- Besides that, what are your thoughts on this book?
I I just remembered something. This is the book where Vernestra has her hyperspace stuff going on, right?
Yes.
I love that. I think after especially after reading the Thrawn novels, I loved seeing something like that in this book. I thought it was super cool, and I was like, "Okay, is this a way that we're gonna, like, explore this, through the future, and is this gonna even connect to the Thrawn novels?" It could just be completely separate, I don't know, but I think that was such a cool thing to incorporate there. Um, the Xylan Graf was something else. He's a fun character,
He
you
is.
know, typical, like, country club boy, but, yeah, again, I just the characters are just so lovable in this book. I
Yeah.
really do enjoy them.
Yeah, Xylan is definitely over the top. I
Mhm.
will say that. I will also say that one of the saddest moments in the High Republic actually happens in this book too, and that's when Vernestra has to pull the plug on I forget
Mari
her.
Santeca.
Yeah, Mari Santeca. Yeah. That to me was a very sad moment, but it was also a very humane moment too, because like if you really think about it, like Marky and Rowe like was pretty much like torturing this person by keeping them alive. Um, so it's kind of like a mercy death, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to watch, or read about how I mean, I understand also, and this is probably just me sympathizing with Markian because I do love his character so much, but him trying to keep her alive because he knows that if he loses Mari Santeca, he loses his leverage
Yeah.
with denial. He doesn't have paths. What do they need him for?
Mhm.
So I think it was in such a it was such a hard thing even for him because it's almost like he did care about her,
Mhm.
but he was keeping her alive for way too long, and she was basically just suffering because she was old and she was forced to work her body so hard to get these paths for the Nile, and I think that having Vernestra be the one to help her out of that, but also having that connection with her, and hearing Mari Santeca's voice, I think that was done so well. I think it was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the best moments in that book, and Justina Ireland writes it so beautifully. This one does kind of end on a cliffhanger a little bit, with the Nile still trying to regroup because, once again, another giant weapon gets destroyed by the good guys. And that leads us to one of the most unique forms of storytelling here in the High Republic, and that is the manga Edge of Balance, which is written by Justina Ireland. And that one, we are introduced to Lily Toraasi, and we're introduced to another group of Jedi. And I gotta tell you, this manga was fantastic. It's only 145 pages, I think. It's not that long, and it took me about
No, I'm
45
only
minutes.
actually about halfway through
Hmm.
right now, so I haven't finished it.
Okay.
Um, but I do enjoy what I've read of it so
Hmm.
far.
Yeah, it's a fairly quick read, but if you're not used to manga, it can be a little jarring, especially like with the artwork and everything. But it doesn't read like a traditional manga, so you're not going from right to left, you're actually going from left to right like you would with a normal book and everything. But it also has one of the most badass Stellan Geos moments, where he's rescuing the people during the great hyperspace disaster, and pretty much he's just says screw it to his vector and crashes his vector while he's just trying to save these people, and I just think that's awesome. And then we're introduced to another Wookiee Jedi, Master Arkoff, who's really cool too. And I just think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's really cool to see like all of these different species like as Jedi. And that's one thing that this manga does very well. And um have you gotten to the threat in this book yet?
Not quite.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you what it is,
Okay.
um, because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's really cool and it's a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend it if you're on the fence about reading a manga. Check this one out. You will not be disappointed. Let's move on now to Tempest Runner, which is the audio drama written by Kevin Scott. And this is amazing. This audio drama is so good and so much fun to listen to.
Yeah.
And it paints, I mean, it makes you
Yeah.
sympathize with Lorna
It is
D.
really good.
Yeah. Um it makes you sympathize with Lorna D a lot, which I think is really cool too. You're kind of breaking up here a little bit, Maggie.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. It's okay. Well, we can give it just a, we'll give it a couple of minutes here. But chat, if you are familiar with the High Republic, or if you are new here and you haven't started yet, let us know. But if you have been reading the High Republic, let us know what your favorite moments have been. If you need to go back and come back in, you can, Maggie. It's fine.
I think I might be back now.
Yeah, here we go.
I don't
It happens. It's Discord.
know.
Hello?
Really just was like, oh, can you hear me now? Let's see. Hmm. Am I connected now? And now I can't hear you, of course. Of course, this is
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, you're good. You're good. I had my mic muted for some reason. Don't know why.
No, you're all right.
Sorry for the technical difficulties here, people. It's live. So Tempest Runner is so good, and it paints Lorna D in such an amazing light. What are your thoughts on Tempest Runner?
I love Lorna D after the audio drama. I really enjoyed actually the first Star Wars like book novel, if you could say, that I actually like read or listened to was Dooku Jedi Lost. So I think I kind of have almost that special place in my heart for these audio dramas too. And I just thought it was so enjoyable. I loved it gives the characters a little bit more like emotion. And I think it was a perfect way to kind of portray the turmoil between the Tempest Runners and Markion and his dad as well, which we find out what happened to his dad. Um, yeah, I think it was great. I definitely have to listen to it again. I've only listened to it once now. But I think I'm definitely gonna get the script as well when they put that out.
Yeah, I believe the script comes out in March, I believe, and I
Mhm.
will definitely be picking that up as well. Even though I have the audio drama, and I do have to listen to it again. But yeah, it's so good, and Lorna D, like seeing her past and everything, and seeing how she got to where she was really interesting. Um, Pan Ada is annoying, I will say that, but I love like Counselor Whittick and the rest of like the people that she's with on the prison ship.
Mhm.
And I gotta tell you, like, Wittick is like one of the only people to like really believe in her and like
Yeah.
really show her outside of the friend that she makes in this in the on the ship as well, showing her
Mhm.
like, hey, look, your life doesn't have to be this way. Like, you can do this. Um, my only question here is, did she kill Wittick at the end? Because honestly, I don't think she did.
I don't think she did either.
Yeah, I think she
Yeah,
let
I
him
don't
leave.
I think yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like after all that he did for her, I think that she does still have enough heart to let him go before. But I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think she spared like she spared almost everybody. I think like on that ship. Even like the people that like beat the crap out of her like her first like week there. She still spared them. So it's really interesting because we also see Lorna takes her rightful place as Tempest Runner again, and it looks like she's coming after Marky and Roan now. And all
Yeah,
does not seem to be going well with the Nile.
nope. Not at all.
And I think that that's really cool because I really think that the whole Lorna and Markian conflict is gonna kind of come to a head here very soon.
Mhm.
And
I agree.
I don't think, well, we'll get into Wave 3 predictions here in just a minute. But I think that is, oh, Trail of Shadows. We have Trail of Shadows to talk about, as well as the Monster of Temple Peak. And then we'll get into our Wave 3 predictions here. Trail of Shadows is so good. Uh,
It is. Oh, it is amazing.
this is a detective story set during the High Republic, and it's so well done and so much fun to read. Emmerich Captor is such a great character. Cyan Holt is such a great character, and just I love I love their dynamic, and I love the tension between them too.
Mhm.
I also love that Stellan is in this series too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I this is definitely probably my favorite behind Rising Storm right now. I am loving Trail of Shadows. I wasn't even too sure about it. Also, when it first was announced, I was like, that, a detective comic. This is interesting. I wasn't too sure about it, but then once they put out that first you know, picture of Loden and Emmerich just being like, "Hmm, what is going on here?" I thought that I was like, "Okay, this seems very intriguing," and now I absolutely love it. I think it is so well done. Yeah, the Emmerich and Cyan tension relationship there, I'm absolutely loving as well. It's great.
Yeah, and we do have this was the book that gave us confirmation of Stellan and Elzar and Avar being a polycule. So
Yep.
we do have that. And I also have a feeling like this series and the High Republic in general is going to lead us to the point where we see the Jedi in the prequel trilogy talking about attachments being forbidden.
Mhm.
Because we're really starting to see people grow attached to other people, especially now.
Yes, definitely.
So if you have not read Trail of Shadows yet, do yourself a favor, get down to your local comic shop because it's awesome. It's so good. It's so well done. Then that leads us to Monster of Temple Peak, which feels just like a regular monster hunt with Ty Yorick from the Rising Storm. But in this, we also see flashbacks of her Jedi training days too, which I think is pretty cool. Your thoughts on Monster of Temple Peak?
I read through Monster Temple Peak so fast. I did it all at once, and it was just I feel like my brain just didn't even comprehend it, so I definitely have to look at it again. But I loved seeing the flashbacks of Ty because we knew she was a Jedi from what was said during the Rising Storm, but I felt like it was not super clear as to why she was so put off on people calling her a Jedi or bringing it up, period. And I think they did a great job of just showing like her conflict there with the Jedi and why she has such animosity towards the Order. And it was just awesome to see her just go after these. I think that's just such an interesting storyline because usually you go like bounty hunter or like some other kind of, like, contracted help, but a monster hunter, that is not really something we've ever seen before with Star Wars. So I thought it was super cool, uh, comic.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. It's fun. It's another good palate cleanser, especially after the Rising Storm. Even though it takes place before the Rising Storm, it's still a very nice palate cleanser. And so that leads us to Wave 3, which kicks off tomorrow with The Fallen Star. And like I've said leading up to this, we are not changing the name of the podcast, so don't worry about that. Um, but we do know that with the Fallen Star, things are about to change in a big way. First off, we are going to be losing Starlight Beacon Station. We already know that that is a given. But I'm just gonna go through what we have so far for Wave Three, what's announced, and we'll go through some predictions here. We have the Fallen Star, which comes out tomorrow. Some people have already gotten their hands on it earlier, either advanced reader copies or whoever they ordered from shipped them to them early. Then we have Midnight Horizon, which is a young adult novel by Daniel Jose Alder that has Comac Vetus and Wreath Silas on the cover, and that actually might be my favorite cover of Wave 3. Uh,
Mhm.
then we have Mission to Disaster by Justina Ireland. This takes Vernestra and Emery on another adventure. Then we have the Eye of the Storm comic miniseries written by Charles Soule. That will be published by Marvel. And then we have the Great Galactic Bake Off one shot comic written by Daniel Jose Alder and published by IDW. And then there's so much more in the pipeline here. So let's talk about our predictions for Wave 3. Who is making it out of this phase?
Hopefully hopefully people I like. Um, I don't think we're gonna lose Avar quite yet. I think she has a lot more story. Even though she is the Marshal of the Beacon, I really think that she's gonna make it out. Um, but that's just me. Same with Elzar. I think that he has so much left to explore with his touch to the dark side and all that fun stuff. I think if we do lose any of the three of them, it might be Stellan. And I don't want to say that and I don't want to manifest it, but I think that his death would be one that would really affect a lot of people.
Hmm.
And it'd be a lot of different characters from all reaches now because you have these groups that are in the young adult novels, in the High Republic Adventures, and I think there's probably at least one character in each of the books who has some sort of attachment to Stellan. And I think it will be very heartbreaking if it does happen, but I think that it would make it sort of like Loden did. I know we didn't get to know Loden as well as the reader, but you could tell that these Jedi thought that he was such a great Jedi and such a great person, and they all looked up to him very much. And I feel like Stellan is almost the same as Loden was in that sense. Um, so I think that he might not make it out. Um, I think we know that Comac and Wreath are gonna be okay. I think that's pretty much assumed. Vern, Imri. Um, I think that Kiev will be fine, but I'm not too sure about Skier.
I think Skier is going to. I think he's going to die.
Mhm.
I don't think he's going to die in the Fallen Star. I think he's going to die in the Marvel comic.
Mhm.
Um,
I agree with that.
but I think that with his death, that leads Kiev to leave the Jedi Order and to become one of the Lost 20
Mhm.
that's mentioned in Dooku Jedi Lost. I think that that's my big prediction. Out of the big three, I think you're right. Stellan's the one that goes first, just because he's kind of the one that we've been spending the most time with lately, too.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know. I think Avar and Elzar have a lot more story to be told. I mean, Stellan has a lot more story to be told, too, but it's just one of those things where I can definitely see him going out. I think you're right about. I think you're right about Wreath and Comac. I think that they're going to be fine. I think Orla's going to be fine. I wouldn't
I
be.
actually do have her written down not making it.
Oh, really?
I just feel like I feel like in my brain I had to pick one of them from that little group, and we knew Wreath and Comac were gonna be fine, and I just feel like, I don't know why, there's just some characters that my brain is like, "Oh, they're probably just not gonna make it because it's the same way with Indira. I have no reason to believe that Indira won't make it out, but for some reason, my brain is just like, "Oh, Indira is probably not gonna make it," and I just don't have an explanation behind it. So, Orla is one of them, and Indira is another one where I don't know if they're gonna make it, but I just don't have a reason.
I'll see your Orla and raise you a Des Rydan.
Okay.
I think Des
I
comes
could see
back.
that.
I think Des comes back for Midnight Horizon and gives his life.
Mhm.
Um, you know, at the Nile Masquerade too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also have Porter Angle because I just don't know how much this man can take. I feel like he's just come to the end of his time.
Yeah. I don't think Buryaga's gonna not make it. I think he's gonna be fine.
Me too.
I, I think I think I think Bell will be fine
I agree with that. I think Bill will be
physically.
okay. Mhm, yeah. Him and Elzar need to go to therapy together.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they should. Um, but like there's so many characters and we don't know. I think by the
Yeah.
middle of I think by the middle of phase 2, Marky and Rose dead.
Yeah, I have him written down for this next one to that we might not have him anymore. I think that uh it was very much set up in Tempest Runner
Hmm.
that something will be happening between him and Lorna, and I think that Lorna will come out on top there.
Yeah. I so one of my predictions for the Fallen Star um actually I talked about this a while ago, but I'll talk about this again real quick. There was a person on Twitter that gave a theory that at one point they mentioned that Starlight has a hyperdrive and that it could just go anywhere. And I was like, oh well, the Nile are using hyperspace like as a weapon and like all this other stuff. Maybe they'll send like Starlight into the unknown regions and then they'll be discovered by the Chiss and then that's when Vernestra will be the first Skywalker. And now I'm thinking I still think Vernestra is going to be discovered by the Chiss, but I think it's going to be in a different way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the only reason why I don't think that I I'm not sure. I just know that the Chiss don't like anybody, and
Hmm.
they don't like any outsiders. They think they're all inferior, so that's why the only thing I don't know about it, but I think it would be just such a great way to tie it together. I just don't know how they would do it.
Yeah. Um, this wave is going to be interesting because we also get the Galactic Star Cruiser introduced here as well, and this one's pretty interesting too because we do know that it is going to help evacuate Starlight Beacon because we have seen the concept art of it. How
Yes.
how much of a factor outside of it evacuating Starlight Beacon? We know it's a mission to disaster. We know we're going to explore it being built in Midnight Horizon. Is this going to play a more prominent role in the High Republic, or do you think we're just going to get this and then the Buryaga story in the comic and that's about it?
I feel like part of me is wanting it to be a big part, but I don't know. I think we might just be getting just a little bit there, and then I think the big chunk of it will be in the Buryaga comic.
Mhm.
Um, but I would love to see it be a very prominent thing in here because it would be interesting to see kind of, how did it get out by Batu?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be a really fun thing to explore, and we've seen Batu in other novels. I mean, we saw it in Thrawn. So
Hmm.
it's not like this is some crazy like out world, like it's in the outer rim, but it's not crazy out there. So it's definitely in a reachable place for where we're at in the galaxy right now. So I would love to see more, but I'm not too sure if we're going to get a whole lot.
Or does the beacon crash on Batu?
That would be sick if it did.
Because then that's another piece of storytelling that you have to have in the parks.
Just pitch it, it's fine. S Hello, Disney. I have an idea for
Disney.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't. What else is there to predict here? I mean, we have to go along for the ride. Like, we can't
Yeah,
anticipate. We have to participate in this.
mhm.
Um, do you have any final thoughts before we? I know it wasn't going to be a 2 hour. I'm sorry, it's not a 2 hour show tonight, and I know that we kind of breezed
All
through
good.
some of these. But what are your thoughts overall on this? Like, has this become your favorite era of Star Wars?
I think by far it has definitely become my favorite. My sister was here visiting the other week, and I every single thing I brought up somehow tied into the High Republic, and she was like, "You are literally so annoying." She's like, "Everything you say, you just say, 'Oh, in the High Republic.'" I'm like, "Yeah, because there's just so much. There's so much content that anything in my brain or anything that I see around, I can relate to the High Republic in some
Hmm.
way and find a way to bring up a story." And I am loving the characters, which is a total bummer because I know we're going to be losing a lot of them in horrible ways. So
Yeah,
it kind of stinks that I'm loving them so much, but these are just absolutely terrific stories. Definitely so glad that it's gonna be around for a while, and
yeah.
we're getting so many different types of media too. I think that's the awesome part as well, is not like we're starting out with these books, but what else are we gonna get? We're gonna get so much more that we don't even know of yet, and it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it,
Yeah, this thing. Uh,
and I'm
go ahead.
glad that I'm glad we have it.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm all done. You're good.
No, I'm sorry, I cut you off. This thing came at the right time. It really did. This story just hit at the right time, and I think it's really interesting because even with all of the despair that is going on in this story, there's still a lot of hope in this story as well. And I think that we're still going through this pandemic. We're still going through this, and a lot of people have lost sight of hope. But when they started reading the High Republic, or they were told about the High Republic and got into it, they rediscovered hope. And that to me is like my biggest takeaway of this. This has easily become my favorite era of Star Wars. Um, I find a way to implement the High Republic in everything as well, because it's just so ingrained in my brain right now because of just how in depth the story is. Like there's that meme of Charlie Day and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like with like all the newspapers on the wall with the markers and the string and stuff. And like I have a feeling like when I go and visit my parents like at the end of the month and they ask me like what we've been doing on the show, I'm just going to be like, well, we're talking about the High Republic. Well, what's the High Republic? Well, how much time do you have? Because I have to, you can't just explain one thing of this era. Like you have to explain everything. Um,
Yeah.
in order for people to like really experience it. But it's just really funny that like more and more people. I just think it's interesting. Like Lil, I talked to Lil, who's a mutual friend of ours, and she has said like. She got into the sequel trilogy and stuff, but like the High Republic cemented Star Wars for her, and it's one of those things. It's really cool to see like all of these new fans discovering Star Wars not from watching movies or TV shows, but by reading the High Republic and then going back and watching the movies and TV shows. It's so awesome. So,
Yeah, it's super cool.
yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to be emotionally devastated tomorrow, but
I'm going to be tonight
well, I'll be
because
go ahead.
I'm actually
You're,
oh no,
you're
I was just saying I don't know if it's a bad idea or a good idea to stay up all night to read it because I know I'm going to be very emotionally drained after this book, but I'm also excited for it.
I do have the audiobook hitting at midnight. I will be up at 4:30 with that thing downloaded and ready to go as I drive into work at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I'll be listening to it throughout the day tomorrow, and then once I get my physical copy, I'm also like going to just fly through that thing like as fast as I can because I'm just ready to consume it.
Yep, me too. I can't wait to just talk about it. I don't even know anything about it, and I feel like I just want to talk about it already.
Yeah, exactly. We have been avoiding spoilers like the plague when it comes to the Fallen Star,
So
and
bad.
it's so tough. It is so tough to avoid
Yeah.
spoilers for this book. But we're here. It's here, and we're getting it in a little over 2 hours. We are finally getting this book, and it's finally here. Wave three is finally here. The 1 year anniversary is finally here. So in closing, I think that we both have to say thank you to these writers and thank you to everybody involved in the High Republic because this story means so much to all of us. And I mean, we know that it means a lot to these writers, but it means a lot to us too. And people like Lissa D and Michael Siglain and Christina Ariel, like just interacting with the community and the Luminous Five interacting with the community. It just means so much to us. So we just want to say thank you to everybody involved in the High Republic. Maggie, do you have any last thoughts before we close tonight?
No, I just echoing that thank you. I said it on Twitter, on New Year's Day. I really have not read since probably 8th grade for leisure. I kind of got into a rut where I was in school and I was just having to do book reports and all that kind of stuff, so I hated reading at a certain point, even though I loved it as a kid. I getting back into these books has totally sparked into them. I didn't actually get a physical copy of the new, of a Star Wars book until The High Republic, and am I am so thankful for it because it's just given me a new almost a new hobby as well, but also just uh, like it's just this community is great too. And I mean, without these books, we wouldn't have this great community of Star Wars fans who just genuinely enjoy the content. And it's great. I couldn't be more thankful for what we've gotten out of this series.
Yeah. Um, I will say that it definitely helped us get through a pretty dark time. Also, like it's helped a lot of us get through some stuff. So, but yeah, this community is amazing. The High Republic community is incredible, and uh, yeah, that's it for us. That is it for us. Stay tuned. This Wednesday, we're going to have the audio version of this past Saturday night's episode for you. This Friday, I should have a review of The Fallen Star for you guys in audio and on video. And this Saturday night is our Book of Boba Fett episode 2 review. We're going to review chapter 2 of Book of Boba Fett. And then stay tuned because the 12th is our RPG. So we have a lot of content coming your way here very, very soon. But that is it for us tonight. I want to thank Maggie. I want to thank Laura. You two have been incredible. You guys are always welcome back on the show, no matter what. Thank you for joining our team, by the way, because I can't wait to have you on to talk more High Republic stuff. Because that's
I'm
awesome.
very excited.
Yes. So that is going to be it for us tonight. Once again, may you always fight for light and life. May the Force always be with you. And remember, at the end of the day, we are all the Republic, and we will see you later this week for the Fallen Star. So that's it for us, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see